Hello, this is Alexander Siddig, and you're listening to Kneel Before Pod, and don't tune out.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello and welcome to another Kneel Before Pod Flashcast. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but there's a trailer for Star Trek, so we haven't talked about Star Trek in at least a week. So with me is my 23rd century bridge crew, Nick.
Hey.
And Sandy.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. How are we all?
Yeah, we're good.
Fine.
Excellent, excellent. So, it's a big week for nerdy stuff. Trailers appearing all over the shop. A little trailer for the new Star Trek series has appeared, and the internet is ablaze with chat, so we're kind of late to the party, but we're here. It's like we've arrived late at Wolf 359. Everyone's destroyed, and then we're here.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, I don't get it. I thought Brian Fuller was doing it. I didn't know Seth MacFarlane was doing Star Trek. I mean, who knew?
Yeah, indeed.
It's great, you know?
Well,
it's funnier than I used to, but, you know, the whole series is going to be like Trouble with Tribbles. I can live with that.
Yeah, Seth MacFarlane. Yeah, why not? Yeah. Eagle-eyed listeners will know that's a different show, which we'll probably end up talking about anyway, as a means of comparison.
I don't think there's any probable about it. There would definitely be not.
I actually pay good money to see Seth MacFarlane do an actual Star Trek show, but, you know, I may be in a minority there.
Yeah.
Well,
apart from his cameo in Enterprise.
Yeah, I was about to mention that.
Where he says, right away, sir, or something like that.
Yeah, it was the speaking part.
The only slightly disturbing thing, every time he speaks, I just hear Stewie Griffin.
Yeah.
Curse you, vile woman! I can't do the voice, but, you know.
Yeah, he says something like "right away, sir" or whatever when Trip hands him something. Yeah, I
hear Brian, because Brian's closer to his actual voice.
Yeah, I just hear. I know Stewie stuck in my head. But anyway, we digress.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, my fault.
We haven't even started, and we're already off topic.
Yeah, I'm not good with topics.
So we'll start with what are topics? So we'll start with the trailer as its own full entity. What did we think? Nick, you can go first.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I can see how people are going to be unhappy with it, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, there's changes there. It doesn't really look like it could... Well, you know what? I think there's something stylistically about it. It looks almost like it's an evolution from Forbidden Planet, which in some ways I think is actually appropriate. Almost as if J.J. Abrams did Forbidden Planet is almost the look, which, considering Forbidden Planet is almost a precursor to Star Trek, is not entirely inappropriate. But I can see how people wouldn't like it. But I think it looks great. I enjoyed the trailer. I'm old enough to remember the furore when TNG came out, and everybody, including me, hated it initially because it wasn't our Star Trek. But so, you know, I'll keep an open mind. I enjoyed the trailer. I'm looking forward to it. The series, that is.
Cool.
Sandy, does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I can't really add anything to it, really. To that, I'm exactly on the same path as Nick there. As it looks interesting. It's definitely got a more reimagining vibe to it. I think what they're doing to Trek is what Sci-Fi did to Battlestar Galactica. I think that's the road they're going down.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression a little bit. I liked the look of it. My main reservations came on a visual level. I think some of it looks a little bit cheap. There's some really bad green screen in there, particularly in the external shots where they're, where Michael or Michelle or however you pronounce her name is in space.
It'll be Michael.
Yeah, you can tell it's...
Keep in mind, it may not be final effects work.
Yeah, it's probably trailer effects. They probably pushed something out quickly. Yeah,
let's hope so. Because obviously for a flagship show on a streaming network thing, it needs to not look quite as bargain basement. Because I have seen better looking fan films in terms of visual effects.
I'm not sure I'd agree with that. And I've watched a lot. Well, unless you're not talking about just Star Trek fan films, but I've seen a lot of Star Trek fan films, and I wouldn't say I've seen better effects in Star Trek fan films. It may not be motion picture quality quite, and it may not be fully polished, but I'm not sure I'd argue I've seen better effects in fan films.
Yeah, and the visuals are about the only negative I have, along with some of the sort of cheesy lines. But I like the look of it. It's definitely a reimagining, as you said, Sandy. I think it's more in line with what the future might look like now. So I can see how some fans would get annoyed about holographic communications and stuff like that because they didn't have that in the original series. And it's like, no, well, they'd never conceived of it in the 60s, so that's why they didn't have it. You know?
But they did have holograms in the original series.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
We did. Let's say, one man's cheese is another man's Shakespeare. I'd also point out, while I kind of agree on the whole reimagining, I do kind of lean, and I know people are saying they think this is more of a prequel to the Abrams movies. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think stylistically it certainly looks more like a prequel to the Abrams movies, but I think from a storytelling point of view, I'm inclined to take them at their word that the intent is that it's a prequel to the original series. How you line that up in your head, I guess, is up to everyone to make up their own minds. I saw John Cooley, who works for Anovos, make a very good analogy about this, about using comic books and the way different art teams draw things differently, but yet these things are still in the same continuity, and I think that's a fair comparison as to how I see it. I guess that's not going to work for everybody. I can certainly live with that. But again, it's a case in point of wait and see what the show's like. It's either going to survive or not, based on whether it's any good or whether people latch onto it. And sometimes quality is not the defining factor in these things. Sometimes it's hitting the right kind of notes with the public and just gaining their attention, whether it's good or bad. I mean, we've seen good shows fail and bad shows succeed, although I guess that's kind of a matter of perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's interesting that we might get to see the first truly modern Star Trek series, because Enterprise wasn't a modern Star Trek series. It was a weird hangover from the days of Voyager, and they didn't appreciate that storytelling was changing. Even in the better seasons, it was still kind of very... It felt a bit old in terms of how they were telling their stories, so I think this show should take stock from things like The Expanse or Battlestar Galactica and how you tell a story. Maybe not in tone, but in how to tell the story.
I think that's a fair point. Certainly, I think Enterprise tried to evolve, certainly in its latter two seasons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think part of the problem Enterprise certainly had in the third season is not everybody was on board with that type of storytelling from a fan point of view.
Yeah.
Because they were very torn between pleasing old-time fans and pleasing new-time fans. And I hate to kind of polarize people in old-time fans. And I mean, I'm kind of both in a way. But I think DS9 probably balanced that one better than most of the shows. And I guess the way DS9's, I think, aging better from a storytelling point than some of the shows are. Voyager. And I like Voyager, but I think DS9 storytelling certainly feels a lot more modern than any of the other shows there. That's not
slightly ahead of its time, yeah.
Yeah. I think Enterprise tried, but I think they were trying too hard to please everybody and not please everyone. Hopefully this show won't make that mistake. I think Star Trek Into Darkness certainly made that mistake.
Yeah.
Beyond didn't, but I think a number of things kind of poisoned the well for Beyond a little bit. That's another discussion entirely, I guess. But hopefully they get the balance right, and hopefully they get the viewership that makes it successful. And hopefully it doesn't suck.
Well, that's the key modifier, isn't it? Let's make sure it's not bad. But I'm interested to see what modern storytelling is like when applied to Star Trek, because obviously character development and things being arc-driven are more common at the moment, and even things that aren't arc-driven, your character should remember what happened last week, for instance. So it's one of those things where the character should learn from things every week and then feed them into what they do next week, and they should change and evolve. And Star Trek wasn't always very good at that.
Well, the original series was particularly bad at that. TNG certainly dabbled in that a little bit. And you did see continuity from one season to the next on TNG. But again, it was very early days. And I mean, that just wasn't a type of storytelling that you saw outside of soap operas back then.
Yeah.
Or very rarely, I guess.
Yeah,
outside of soap operas.
Picard being assimilated by the Borg, him getting over that would take an entire season, but in today's world at least. But other than him mentioning it now and again, he was kind of back to normal the next week, and and imagine if season 4 of TNG existed now, it would be Picard isn't in command for the first half of the season because he's so cut up
quite
about,
possibly.
Yeah.
And rightly so. I mean, I think certainly the writers on TNG recognised that was an issue. And I mean, it's famously said that Gene Roddenberry didn't want to do a story following up on that. No, Picard would move on; he'd be fine. Blah blah blah. But the writers on TNG insisted on doing family, and they kind of won that argument.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Gene Roddenberry was that heavily involved with TNG by that point, but because his health was failing. But they made family, and that was certainly the right call. Can you imagine making family and drawing that out through even half of that season? You know, that could have been... I mean, that story could easily have been drawn out. Riker's off commanding the Enterprise, Picard's on Earth, building undersea... and how do those two stories merge again to bring him back? That really could have been quite interesting to see.
Yeah.
Alas.
But the television viewing public just wasn't ready for that kind of storytelling at that point.
Well, I were they ready or were they not? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose you'll never know.
I mean, I'm not what you call a huge Babylon 5 fan, but I mean, Babylon 5 came along and did, arc-based storytelling in a science fiction setting, whether you liked it or not. I know a lot of people do like it, and that had a pretty strong following. I think the audience for that kind of storytelling has always been there. I'm just not convinced studios were brave enough to try it.
Yeah.
Or maybe forward-thinking enough to try it.
Yeah. Imagine this trailer, sort of getting back to the topic. Imagine
Sorry.
it's... Yeah, no, it's fine. It's all Star Trek, it's fine. Imagine this trailer is mostly, if not entirely, scenes from the pilot episode.
I would guess so, and possibly even the early part of the pilot episode.
Yeah, because, I don't know, I just get the impression that we're not seeing a sizzle reel of the first half of the season or whatever, but I think they've only recently finished shooting.
I think they've only shot
pilot.
3 episodes, maybe 4. I'm sure Les Moonves said something about 3 episodes in the can, or maybe 4.
Yeah. Yeah, so it looks like it'll be quite a busy pilot. If that's what it is, I mean, if that's what it's all from, but...
Well, it's possible. I mean, that story's... What's going on there is spread over, 2 episodes. I guess that could be the first 2 episodes.
Yeah. And I like how vague...
That.
Yeah, I like how vague the trailer is as well. You kind of don't see an awful lot of what's going on. There's... You don't even get a good shot of the ship, which is quite brave, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that's even the Discovery. I think that's the... I can't say it.
The Shenzhou?
Shen's. I don't think it's pronounced like that, is it?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't want to mispronounce it. I hate doing things like that. But
whatever that is,
yeah. Yeah.
Although I've read sort of rumours that ship will become heavily damaged and then get renamed.
Yeah, I don't really... I don't know. Yeah, it's always possible. Maybe it becomes a Frankenship of some kind.
Yeah.
To be fair, there are bits about that ship that look kind of similar to the Discovery as well. So it could, but then I don't know. There's a lot of speculation. I kind of like the idea of having multiple ships and settings in this show, and I think it gives more of a depth and a sense of realism to the universe that we're not just focusing on one ship and one crew.
Yeah, it'd be kind of unique. Yeah.
But it'll be what it'll be. I don't mind. I'll watch anyway, unless it's really bad, and then I won't. And then I'll probably still watch even if it's really bad. To be honest, it's Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm entitled to hate this. Damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sandy, you've not said anything in a while.
No, I've been listening. All very good points. Very, very good points. I'm not gonna judge it on just the trailer. I'm going to watch it and see if it's any good.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. We're the built-in audience, aren't we? You know, we're going to watch this no matter what's in that first trailer.
It has a potential of being very good. I mean, so far what I've seen, I like it. I like. I'm not sure about this alien that can see death coming. But other than that, I like what I see so far. The costumes are confusing me a little, but I think there seems to be differentiation in costumes where some of them are silver, some of them are gold, and some of them are bronze.
Which kind of almost follows, it's not quite, but it's not dissimilar to the divisional colours in the cage.
Yeah.
The divisional colours in the cage were much more muted, and I wonder if they're trying to echo something along those lines.
Or Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Or Where No Man Has Gone Before. Yeah. But the cage is, again, slightly different, I think. I think there's some... I can't remember all the details, but I think there's some subtle differences between the cage and Where No Man. I mean, they're pretty similar anyway.
Yeah,
but certainly much more muted colours. And the colour scheme I thought of the sets was a bit reminiscent of the cage.
Yeah, there's something kind of well, no, the word bland is wrong, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of
I know what you mean.
Utilitarian, isn't it? You know, they're kind of under-designed rather than over-designed.
I like the corridor.
Yeah, if you look at the JJ Enterprise bridge, that's like it's like a mess of lights and stuff going on all the time. But
it's an Apple store.
Yeah,
basically.
But this is
it kind of is.
Yeah, but this is this bridge, from what we see, looks a bit quite functional.
You know what? I must admit, I do agree with some people who think it's a prequel to the JJ universe.
It has that look
because I've seen a screen grab of a console, and it looks very much like what has been dubbed P-Cars from the 2009.
I do think they've taken a lot of visual cues from Abrams,
and the bridge, the way the lighting and its functionality looks a lot like the Kelvin's bridge in terms of style and aesthetics.
I think there's a very sensible reason they've gone for that look, though, is it's because of what the general public who've seen the movies is familiar with, and they want something that looks like Star Trek to those people. Now, whether the people that think this is really a prequel to the Abrams movies, or whether it's a prequel to the original series, just visually updated, at this point we don't really know. The studio is saying it's a prequel to the original series. Take them at their word if you like, or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing I would point out, there is a split in licensing between CBS and Paramount. So can CBS use the Abrams verse? I don't know.
It's a good question.
Well, if they write an agreement, I suppose there's nothing...
If they write an agreement, they could. The question remains, have they?
Indeed. But there's nothing wrong with taking your style cues off something. As long as you're not doing a direct copy, there's not much they can do.
Well, I mean, the Abrams movies, I thought, did a really good job of updating the look of the original series to think of what would it maybe look like if it was made now. I mean, the thing is, obviously, every Star Trek series is a projection of the future as as people understood it at the time. So, Next Generation, people were starting to talk about the idea of having palm-top computers, and in Next Generation they've got tablets, essentially. So it's beyond the capacity to imagine kind of thing is what informs Star Trek's look. So, of course, the Discovery, or whatever the ship is called, is going to look like a bit like the Abrams movies, because it's a projection of the technology we have now.
I think that's unavoidable as well. I think if you don't... I would watch a show that looks like The Cage every week, but, most people who aren't die-hard fans would not. And, I love fan films. I like Continues and Exeter and Farragut and Axanar and all these fan films that are out there. But, at the end of the day, most people are not going to watch... Well, the people that watch these things are a subset, and the look that's recreated in a lot of these fan films is not something that's going to sell day to day on a multi-million-dollar TV show. No. As much as we would want it to.
Yeah.
We would watch that, but most people wouldn't.
And even with these different productions, you look at the viewing trends and the donation trends that they were with their, and they were getting fewer and fewer and fewer.
Oh yeah.
People are getting annoyed. Well, not annoyed, but bored with the 60s aesthetic. They want something fresh.
There may be some truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, the original series aesthetic has been done to death now. Let's go for something new.
Well, to be fair, I think that's a fair point. I mean, look at the amount of original series era fan films that are coming out now, and they're not having a lot of luck with their crowdfundings. To be fair, they're not raising like. I mean, there's multiple reasons why that could be, and we could debate that until the sun cows come home. But I think that's a fair point.
Till the sun cows come home. Very sci-fi.
Yeah. Sun cows.
It sounds like a
maybe
episode of The Next Generation.
Maybe we could sell that idea to Seth MacFarlane. Sun cows on Orville.
Yeah.
We're going to see the sun cows.
But yeah, I agree. The aesthetic is obviously a projection of today's technology and today's sensibilities and aesthetics and whatnot.
Just as Enterprise was.
Yeah, indeed. I have seen a lot of people harping on about, but it looks much more modern than the original series. It can't be a prequel then. It must be a new timeline. I went, no, they're not. If you were to build sets and make a production today of the multi-million-dollar production that that CBS is obviously doing here, that made out of flimsy sets and something that looks like it's come directly out of the cage, it's going to flop.
People are going to laugh at you.
Yeah.
They're going to go, really? Seriously? We had this in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when you saw the original Enterprise bridge on Enterprise, in the Mirror Universe episodes, there was a novelty factor to it. It's like, oh, look at this. It's like, but it looks retro enough to look like
as a one-off
in the future. But
as part of a tribute, great.
Yeah.
But for a day-to-day show, outside of a fan film where you've got a particular audience that wants that kind of thing, it just wouldn't fly as much as any of us would want to see it fly, and we would. I would tune into this, but.
It's
the general public that watches stuff would not.
It's not something that would make money.
No, and you've got shows like The Expanse or Battlestar or anything like that. That's the kind of shows that people are going to tune into, and you put something on that looks like something that was made in 1960 next to it, what are they going to watch?
Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
Battlestar is an interesting one from a design point of view, because the point of the Battlestar Galactica ship is that it was old. So, it had analog controls and all that stuff. So, but there was kind of an
It
aged
still looked
look
like
about
future
it.
tech, though.
Yeah.
Apart from all the medical monitors in there, which are actually, like current-day medical monitors, but, that's another matter entirely.
And they were typing on keyboards and pressing buttons rather than touching screens. But
that kind of worked. But the thing is, it was real technology. It wasn't like made-up plywood things with flashy lights on it. So it felt real because it was real.
Yeah, I mean, the intercoms that you see them using all the time, and you see when Adama picks up that headset, that's an actual, factual, literary communication device.
yeah,
They used a lot of stuff like that.
yeah,
Indeed.
And that grounded it.
Yeah,
It made
exactly.
it's... Yeah.
yeah. And there's a bit of retro about this Discovery trailer as well, because the communicator looks pretty unweird.
Oh, did you see how she flipped that open?
Yeah.
She's been practicing.
Yeah.
She must have been practicing. Someone's been coaching on how to flip that communicator open, because that doesn't look like someone who's just playing a part and they've done that for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a way to flip open the communicator, and she did it properly. I like that. Sorry, I was just geeking out on that.
No, it was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. But it looks like some of the tech will look kind of retro, and everything else looks pretty advanced. I think if you dropped the prequel label and told us it was set after Voyager, people would believe it as well.
Probably.
Quite possible.
Yeah.
Someone I briefly saw a post on Facebook somewhere where someone had screenshotted one of the desert planet scenes that we see in the trailer, and has circled round what looks like a original series tricorder. That's over the shoulder of I can't remember which character it is, but someone said, "Oh, that looks very much like an original series tricorder." So it could be that there will be little nods to established tech.
I think there will be.
So. Yeah, there's got to be. I mean, there'll just be little Easter eggs, or maybe
Exactly.
someone will try and use the old tricorder and be like, "Oh, what's with this piece of crap? It doesn't do anything."
And if they do something like that, then that will convince me that they actually do care about this. Because you don't do things like that if you're just going, let's just make money.
Yeah. Well, there was a couple of things that jumped out at me from the trailer that made me think there was a bit of Star Trek ethos about it. There's the line about they've discovered something that they can't identify, and I think it's the Michael character says it would be irresponsible to leave whatever it is unknown. It's they're going to do some exploring, even though this is fundamentally a bit of a war story, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other line: Starfleet doesn't fire first.
Yeah, that was a good one.
First, I think.
Yeah,
I liked that.
That's the captain that says that.
Yeah, I think maybe these people do get it after all.
Yeah, but this first officer is very kind of shoot first, so...
Yeah, well,
Indeed.
Riker was a little bit like that.
Yeah, he was.
So there's a precedent for that, and it doesn't. I've heard some people say, "Oh, she's a hothead. She has no place on the bridge." And I went, oh, we've had characters like that before, and everybody's perfectly fine with it.
Well, she's apparently been on the bridge for like 7 years, so yeah.
I liked the line that says, "It's time that you command your own ship." Maybe that's when the discovery comes in. That Yeo is she's the captain of the word that name.
Yeah.
Shen Xue. She's the captain of the Shen Xue, and I think maybe then our commander there gets her own ship, and that's the Discovery. That's the way I think it's going to go.
That is the weirdest
Except
performance
she's not
review
supposed to
I've
be
ever
the
seen.
captain.
No, she's supposed to be
is she?
a lieutenant commander, isn't she? Yeah.
Oh, maybe that was just seeds that they sowed to make us talk about it, and it's not actually.
Well, maybe.
Or maybe the captain gets killed in the first episode.
It's quite possible. It's very possible. Anything's possible right now. But
I always
We
thought
just don't know at the moment.
I always thought that Voyager should have started like that, with Janeway as the first officer, and the captain of Voyager gets killed, and then she has to take command, but then Chakotay's there and he's more experienced. So that would have been really cool.
No, yeah, okay, but fair enough. But I still like the way it went down, though. Her first officer is killed, and she has to bring a Marquis into the fold as her first officer. I thought that actually brought in a nice storyline.
Yeah. Plus, Kate Mulgrew couldn't play Meek.
They didn't go anywhere with that character.
Yeah.
No, they should have done. I would have enjoyed a lot more conflict between the two. Where
And there should have been.
Where his Marquis side comes to the fore every so often, and she has to slap him down verbally, obviously.
It looks like there'll be plenty of conflict in this show. There's a couple of shots of them arguing.
The whole lighting of the bridge as well lends itself to a more militaristic look. So if you're going for a militaristic look, you're obviously going to have some more militarized themes, I'm guessing. Yeah,
possibly.
And I like the uniforms too. They remind me of the Kelvin ones a little bit, but
they do actually.
I do like the costumes, and again, they look to me like something that has an almost 50s sci-fi vibe to it.
Yeah, with the especially with the at the shoulders where those metallized rings. Actually that almost has a Futurama thing to it.
Yeah,
maybe. But yeah, it's almost like, to me, an updated version of something that could have been designed in the 50s, which, if you think about it, a prequel to 60s Star Trek kind of should look like that.
Yeah, although it's got the extra detail that you kind of like in the Abrams movies. They were wearing the the original uniforms, but there was a lot more detail.
Yeah, they had the little Starfleet deltas in the. Actually, that's one thing I don't like about the Abrams. I think those little deltas in it, and about these costumes, the deltas are a little bit. I don't know.
I think that was a
fussy.
That was a direct attempt to stop people copying it.
Oh, quite probably.
Yeah,
Didn't really work.
One thing that's confusing me on the costumes that we've seen so far, there doesn't appear to be any sort of rank designation.
They're on the badge.
Is it on the badge?
It's on this Delta. They've got pips on the Delta.
Interesting.
And funnily enough, they match up. They seem to match up to the TNG pips.
Well, it's easier to understand.
Enterprise did that. They just, instead of round pips, they were squared off with a little bit of raised relief. So,
so there's little circular pips on the Starfleet insignia.
Yeah, and there is precedence in the Trek universe of rank designations going here, there, and everywhere. And look at the Wrath of Khan rank designations.
Future Imperfect. Okay, that was like a fantasy, but
it's still canon at the end of the day. It's so the fact that they've got pips doesn't supposedly got pips. That doesn't worry me at all.
No, me neither. I would prefer if they'd used pips kind of echoing more towards the original series kind of stripes, but it's such a minor gripe, it doesn't really bother me.
At first I thought those shoulder stripes would coincide with rank.
So did I.
I thought, oh, she's got 4 stripes. Does that mean that the commander's got 3 or 2.5 or whatever? No, they've all got. Looks like it's 4 stripes. Although the captain does seem to have more embellishment on the shoulders.
Yeah.
So, I think soon. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's take on these costumes, because I'm fairly certain conventions are going to be awash with them soon enough.
Yeah, whenever the first convention after airing is, you'll get them.
Oh,
I'm sure Novos will.
Yeah.
Produce
them.
We'll fail
eventually
to fulfill their orders on those as well.
I bit my tongue the other day when they posted something. I thought they were posting that they were actually going to be selling Discovery costumes, and I was going to post saying, "Buy now, never get."
Yeah. Yeah,
I suspect they will be selling them eventually.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, they've actually been pulling back a lot from their Trek stuff, and
I noticed that as well, actually.
Star Wars,
which worries me slightly, but oh well.
Yeah. There's
perhaps it's not profitable enough for them.
Yeah. So returning back to topic, Sarac's in this trailer quite a lot, which I found interesting.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
well, I like his. I like how he's talking down to Spock.
I don't think it's Spock.
No, I think it's a young version of Michael.
It's Burnham.
Yeah, because I think she grew up on Vulcan. Yeah,
it's certainly implied that there's some relationship between the two of them dating back, which would also explain why he seems to be talking to her later in the trailer as an adult.
Yeah, okay.
The question is what the relationship between the two of them is.
Yeah, and I think
if
this
that is
Serac,
indeed the case.
And I like this Serac a lot better than the. Yeah, he is. But I like this version better than the Abrams version already. I never liked the Abrams version.
I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I always get the impression that Serac.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah. I always get the impression that Serac in his younger days was a bit of a hard ass,
Dick.
Yeah, well.
He may well have been.
Yeah.
To be fair, this isn't much in his younger days, but it's only 10 years before the original series.
That's true. So yeah, well, he was a hard ass in the original series, so.
Maybe he aged quickly in those 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if we'll get some reason for his heart condition later on.
Oh yeah, maybe. Or maybe they'll just kind of forget
maybe
about that.
Something that happens to him during the series. Maybe something that happened to him during the series is the reason he had a heart condition in the original series.
Could be. Or if he's just going to sit in an office via hologram and talk to people.
One thing.
Well, that's entirely possible too.
One thing I will say though is they definitely made the right casting choice, because we all knew instantly that that's Serac. There was no.
Yeah.
There's no questioning that is Serac.
Yeah.
It's not some some Saval like character. It is Serac. I think who they cast for, I can't remember his name, but when I saw
James Frayne.
When I saw that they cast him, I went, yeah, that's a Serac.
Yeah. What do you think of the Klingons as we see them?
I don't like the fact that they seem to chant like those little things in Beyond. If you listen carefully, it sounds like they're chanting or making that noise that those little creatures are doing at the beginning of Beyond.
So basically, the Klingons tried to cure themselves from the augment virus, and they spliced in genes from the little lizard people that are tiny, and tried to eat Kirk.
Yeah, indeed, and are afraid of
it explains a lot.
I did see that article where someone says here's why the Klingons might look different. Here's why the Klingons look different, and I'm like, no, it's not worth the time to read it, because these Klingons, there's just too much different about them. They're not in between augment Klingons and normal Klingons, which. I thought that was brilliant how Enterprise explained why you had some very human-looking Klingons.
Mm-hmm. See, I didn't like the explanation. You know, I didn't like the explanation.
I knew you wouldn't.
I like that.
Everybody else does.
No, I mean,
I like like that. So
sometimes I just don't want questions answered. You know, it's like Prometheus telling me who the space jockey is, or what the space jockeys are in Alien. I don't care. You know, I
don't watch it then.
Let's not get into Prometheus. Yeah. That would start a long conversation of like, griping.
I prefer the basic sort of mystery side of things, because essentially what they had with the Klingons was people talking about it before the internet existed, and it was this enduring.
I have to say,
fodder for fan theories.
I don't disagree. I like that it was like, we do not talk about it, and that was all we needed to know. But I like the explanation they gave us as well. We didn't need it. I would not have been bothered in the slightest if we never had it, but I liked the explanation they gave us. It was a nice little bit of fan continuity that they threw in there.
It was a little bit of fan service, I will say.
Yeah, but that's the word I'm looking for, fan service.
It did tell me that the people who were making Enterprise were paying attention. You know, they knew what they were talking about. They knew what they were writing. They weren't just inventing stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what a lot of fans like. You know, continuity and canon, and preservation of such. Yeah. Which is why a lot of fans are going to have a lot of problems with Discovery. I think we're just going to have to throw the continuity book out the window and just take Discovery as it is.
Just enjoy it. Yeah, I think. I think in the case of Klingons, you know, I always get the feeling that if the original series had had a bigger budget, they would have always looked like that anyway.
Well, they would have, and that's what Roddenberry always said. I mean, the intention was, well, this is what they always looked like.
Yeah.
Or these were Northern Klingons and those were Southern Klingons. Or whatever. It wasn't really. Fans debated it till they were blue in the face, and role-playing games covered it, and books covered it. But there was. I mean, I agree with you. There was no need to, but I like the explanation we got.
Yep.
Talking of the Klingons in Discovery, I don't really have a problem with them.
I think they still look recognisably Klingon, but they're nicely
on, I think they're recognisably Klingon. I mean, depending on what... I don't think it's really any different, in theory, to what they did to the Borg between TNG the series and TNG the movies.
Yeah.
They changed the Borg quite a lot in their appearance. And for the better as well, I agree. And I suspect that's what we're seeing with the Klingons here.
Yep.
Maybe it's not. Maybe there's a story reason these Klingons look like this as well. It could be either. We don't know that yet.
Well, the Abrams version of Klingons looked pretty lame, so I like these ones better.
Yeah, I probably like these better than the Abrams Klingons as well. I didn't mind the Abrams Klingons, actually, but I prefer this. But again, is it just, this is an update, this is what they've always looked like, as far as we're concerned, or is it, there's a reason they look like this in story?
The only thing I liked about the Abrams verse Klingons is that they kept the Klingon language. They looked like emo body modders to me.
Or as honest trailers call them, blingons.
Blingons, yeah, indeed.
The piercings and stuff just seemed utterly pointless, and these are big, tough warriors, and they have piercings all over their bodies that could be ripped out in a close combat. Why would you do that?
Indeed. It just doesn't make any sense.
And they use bladed weapons. Things like that can show... I don't use bladed weapons. Is there not a risk of these things getting caught on things, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you ripped out my ridge piercing. Oh, with your bat'leth. Curse you.
They've also got piercings that go right through their bone, so that's a bit weird. But,
yeah, that's a bit dangerous, really. I mean, why would you want to put a piercing? Mind you, I suppose
that is rather distinctly Klingon, doing something like that. Macho.
You mean stupid?
Yeah, macho.
Stupid.
we don't care about the risk of infection.
Yeah.
Dumbass.
It's like when
We are Klingons. We are dumbasses. Don't tell the CAG or whoever these guys are. I said that.
There's a question.
What?
The new Klingons in Discovery, are they going to change the language, or do you think they're going to honour the established Klingons?
I think they'll... Well, you know what? If Abrams kept the Klingon language, I don't see any reason why the people making Discovery wouldn't. But, who knows?
It's just...
I hope they do.
The Klingon language is so ubiquitous at the moment that I don't see why they...
There's no reason to change it, is there? Really?
I mean, well, you'll need to give them a language and one already exists, so, what's the difference?
Exactly. Why invent another language and then go through the rigmarole of making it sound good? Because people will pick up that they said the same thing twice, and it means 4 completely different things. When you can just use an established language, and I think that would be the final straw. That if they were to change the language, I think a lot of people will go BS and turn off.
I think fans may say that. I think if it's popular with the general public, they won't give a
rat's ass.
But
most people won't care.
To be honest, I think that I'd be very surprised if they did. If they even feature the Klingon language, I'd be very surprised if they changed it. And there's no reason to change it. Why invest money in changing it when you've got it there already? They're not going to waste time on that.
Yeah.
Unless they can't be bothered wasting on time on actually putting proper Klingon dialogue together, in which case you may get waffle. We can't be bothered actually paying someone to put these words together, so just grunt a bit and that'll do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I have it on good authority that they actually wanted all sorts of things, like they wanted intricate Vulcan dance scenes. And no, Vulcans don't dance. They stand there and look stoic. That's about it. You might get a hand raised every so often, but that's about it. They don't dance. So if they're trying to do things like that, they might do something stupid like change the Klingon language. But this is just hearsay. This is just coulda, woulda, shoulda. We don't know. But I'm hoping they keep the Klingon language intact, because that would give them the Klingons a little bit more of an authenticity.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, like I say, I'd be surprised if they don't, but you just never know.
Indeed.
I wouldn't have an issue with a Vulcan dance thing, really. I mean, they have intricate combat rituals, so I think some kind of...
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I suppose.
If you think about it, a dance could have like mathematical qualities, because it's all about control and precision, which is very Vulcan. And they are a musical people as well. So...
They are.
That is true.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have an issue with that myself. It would enhance the culture somewhat, because you don't really get much of that. So, yeah...
That's true.
I get the impression that there's some kind of religious aspect to the Klingons in this trailer.
It does look like that.
They're doing some kind of ritual, it looks like. There's a coffin and stuff, or it looks like a coffin. And all the chanting. So I wonder if they're... I don't know.
It might just be the new version of the Great Hall, and they're talking about these humans that have invaded their space, and should they destroy them or not.
Could be anything.
Something as simple as that.
We have next to no story. In fact, we don't have any story whatsoever. We have a collection of images, and We've got the promise of some conflict, we've got the promise of some exploration, we've got the promise of some character development. So those are kind of the three things that Star Trek was criticised for not doing at different points. You know, you get people say there's not enough action, you get people say there's no exploration anymore, and you get people say there's no character development. So that trailer covers off those three things. In different... Well, in about the same quantity, I would say, actually. So, and I think that, I think that Star Trek needs a bit of that. I think it needs we can do a bit of everything. You know, we're not just going to be the stuffed shirt of the sci-fi world anymore.
I don't think Star Trek's ever been the stuffed shirt of the sci-fi world. The problem is it's often perceived that way.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, the perception.
I think those are very fair points.
Yeah, I think obviously people said that Star Trek was like classical music and Star Wars was rock music. You know, and
yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah.
And Star Trek has always been a bit more deliberate. But that's because it's never had the same kind of cache that Star Wars has. So you have to fill in the gaps with other things.
Yeah.
Like characters talking. So when they're talking, they
Story.
have to be saying interesting things.
Plot.
You know, yeah.
Social conscience.
Yeah. Yeah, because they couldn't just, fire a load of photon torpedoes because they couldn't afford them. Yeah, until you get to sort of the Voyager formula in its latter seasons where we'll do a bit of talking, someone will show up and shoot at us a couple of times in case people get bored, and then the episode will resolve itself. I hope we stray away from that kind of formula. I would kind of like, when a space battle appears, I want it to be like a big deal, like it was in like Battlestar Galactica. Just not every episode, but when it shows up, I don't want it to just be a couple of pot shots and then job done. I would like it to be a very big thing.
That would be good.
We got that with Enterprise, didn't we? Especially with the Xindi arc. Anytime there was a battle, we got some extensive exterior scenes.
Towards the end,
because of the age of CGI, it's much easier to do that now. Back in the with the beginnings of Voyager, DS9, and especially TNG, they were still using motion capture on the models. And what was it? What did I see quoted? Just the simple flyby was something like $100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, Enterprise did do more extensive battles, but I think it was still very much those slightly... They were still very much Star Trek space battles. I'm not quite sure how else to verbalise that. Yeah, Battlestar Galactica's space battles just felt more epic. I hate to use the word epic, but more theatrical, more theatrical, more cinematic.
Yeah.
But even the way they were shot, they just felt real in a way that Star Trek ones, as exciting as they can be, don't quite have the same sense of realism about them. Yeah. Maybe it is the lack of sound, I don't know.
It was also the way that the camera would pan, and it was almost as if someone was was controlling, in an observer craft, manually panning the camera around. Because there were times where it would pan round, slightly overshoot, and then come back and then rock into position. And that lent itself to realism, yes.
I hope one thing we kind of get away from in Discovery is the shields at 20%, shields at 13%, shields... It's like, we've taken a hit on the port aft shields. Enough of the shields. Do something different.
That doesn't add anything. It's just people...
It doesn't add anything.
And... Oh no, this number's like slightly lower than the last number. We're in a little bit more danger.
I understand where they were coming from with that, but it just became more of the same over and over and over again. The idea, it wasn't in itself a bad thing, but it became overused, it became a trope. I mean, I think one of the things Nemesis did reasonably well, although again it used that same trope, was the visuals of the space battles were actually, there was some momentum and some oomph to them, which sometimes the Star Trek ones don't have. I think Nemesis actually did that reasonably well.
Yeah. Yes.
Again, they came in the same kind of shields down to 20%, shields failing kind of tropes, but the actual mechanics of the battles, the visuals of the battles were reasonably well done.
You also had that really nice visual where you had the LCAR's readout showing the shields failing, and with bright red flashing and everything, giving you.
See, that was actually a little bit different.
Yeah, a real
to
sense
be fair,
of urgency.
yeah.
We actually finally get to see what they're seeing, and you can see how urgent and how the computer's screaming at you.
Yeah. I always thought the space battle in Nemesis was quite a dynamic one. It was quite well executed. It's
my favourite part.
Yeah, it's most people's favourite part, I think. It's one of those...
even right down to the ramming. Not necessarily required, but it was spectacular.
Yeah. Well, it was an idea... The idea was to make Star Trek a bit more Star Wars, I suppose. I think that was the intent, especially when the box office receipts were kind of dwindling, although Nemesis is why we're in a... Well, it's not the reason, but it's the last thing that happened before the void that exists now. You know, other than Enterprise for one more season.
Well, we all know why. We all know now why Enterprise really was cancelled. It's because Les Moonves didn't like it.
Yeah.
It should have gotten another season.
And now he's head of CBS. So again, that brings me back to: are CBS really just trying to cash in here?
Well, of course they.
Well, yes. Of course they are.
Of course, they're out to make money.
Indeed, but are they actually going to care about it and actually do it right?
I think that question depends on who's working on the show.
Yeah,
it is the right time for it because The Expanse is very popular. It's very widely talked about. Dark Matter does well, etc. So, Dark Matter does well in terms of people watching it. Not enough people watch it to keep it.
My feeling is they're going to try and Game of Thrones it a bit. Whether you like Game of Thrones or not, I like Game of Thrones. It is kind of the style of show of the moment. That is the one at the moment everyone talks about. It's the blue-eyed boy of the TV show circuit. So I'd be surprised if they're not taking some cues from Game of Thrones. Or The Walking Dead, for that instance, where they've stolen their lead actress from.
Indeed.
And I wouldn't... Again, it's modern storytelling, though. That's what people tune into. So I think if they didn't try to borrow... Certainly the things that make those shows work for people... I mean, I don't think The Walking Dead works as a series these days because it's just long, drawn out and boring.
I gave up on it kind of part way through last season, to be honest. I've not even finished the previous season. Yeah,
lots of people... I think people are just abandoning it in droves at this point. But in terms of when those shows were popular, the things that people liked about them, people like the character drama, people like the... I guess people quite like to see things... People descend into sort of darker states of being, which I think we'll get some of here because it's a war story. But I really hope they preserve the Roddenberry-esque light tone or lightness and optimism and everything else. And there is a hint of that in the trailer. Michael is very excited about discovery. Just discovering things and. Yeah, they need to preserve the Star Trek ethos, otherwise it's not Star Trek. Everything else we can sort of forgive, but if it's not optimistic and hopeful, then it's not Star Trek.
And that's my fear, that they're going to forget about that. They're going to go for ratings and not tell a proper story. They're going to go for ratings and just whatever tropes they think are going to bring them viewership, and obviously. Because they're trying to rake in membership for their all access.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So that's my primary fear still. But from the trailer, I think they're off to a good start. Let's just hope that that the aesthetic and the feelings that we're getting from the trailer echo through the series.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I wonder what that desert planet scene is all about. Like, it's just quite interesting. It's because obviously she's just there, and they're talking about her taking her own command. But I wonder if it seems like the weirdest performance review ever.
It's possible that's just some sort of away team, and that's just them small talking.
Yeah, they could be stuck.
Could be as simple as that.
Well, they're not stuck because they get beamed back up.
Yeah,
but
maybe they're not beaming back up to their original ship. Maybe
Yeah.
they're there to see this other ship.
Yeah, it's possible.
Maybe it's her mid-year review, and she's finding out how she's doing.
Yeah, there's easier ways to do that. You just bring her into your office.
Well, but I like to have my mid-year review on a desert planet.
Indeed.
Yeah. But anyway, I think we've beaten this trailer to death. There's not much
Quite
more we can say about
possibly.
2 minutes. Yeah. Should we just talk quickly about the Orville, because it's
Yeah, go on, because
it's
it looks
connected.
awesome.
I am super excited for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it had me sold when as soon as I heard that McFarlane's involved. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go.
I love the
Adrian
stuff.
Palicki as well.
Yeah, that was a surprise. Didn't know. I mean, I'd heard very little about this until I saw the trailer. I was like, "This looks so good."
Oh no, I knew that.
It'll probably last half a season if it's lucky.
Yeah, I knew that she signed up to do that shortly after she left Agents of Shield.
Right,
Her pilot fell through for the other Marvel show that didn't happen.
that was a bummer.
Yeah. Let's get rid of two of our best characters. You were not picking up your show. Oh, crap. We
Yeah,
can't
I'm
bring
still
them
hoping
back
they
now.
bring them back at some point.
Yeah,
They will. They'll bring.
Well,
it back.
Shield's coming back for another season, so hopefully
yeah.
they'll be back.
The season that might kill it because it's on a Friday night now.
Yeah,
But then,
I've actually
yeah,
seen
I do
this
think
season.
maybe this is their last season anyway.
Yeah.
I've not actually seen this season yet. I've
pretty
seen
good.
the first.
It's good.
I saw the first couple of 4 or 5 episodes maybe, and then I just got busy. And
Shield is one of the things about Shield is it really always seems to start off very slowly and then it gets really good.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the 3 arc structure worked this season. You had the Ghost Rider arc, you had the second arc that I won't spoil because Sandy's not seen it, and the third arc, which was outstanding. And I think having 3 mini seasons within a season is better because it stops them just spinning their wheels as often.
Yeah, and if one of the arcs they're on isn't going that well, at least they'll be over soon.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
if people aren't tuning into it.
yeah. I mean, spinning back to Enterprise, that's kind of what they were doing in season 4.
That's
I mean,
true.
the arcs were much shorter. There were 2 or 3 episodes at most, and not all of them were that good in terms of spinning out the story. But it was a good little test of something to do. But the Orville, yeah, it looks really funny. It reminds me of Galaxy Quest.
yeah, it does. I think he's borrowing from Galaxy Quest, but also he's borrowing from Star Trek and Galaxy Quest. And I wouldn't be surprised if when we watch the episodes that there's a few other elements borrowed from other shows.
I don't know how much he's borrowing from Galaxy Quest, to be honest. I mean, there's obviously some inspiration there, but to be honest, I think more of it is kind of like he's parodying Star Trek. And I mean, from the point of view, Galaxy Quest was really a story about fans.
Yeah.
It wasn't really fans of a Star Trek show. Basically, it was a story about fans, whereas this is the show. I'm not sure how I'm putting this very well. This is a completely different. It's almost like The Office in space, which is not what Galaxy Quest was.
No, I suppose. I think a lot of people are drawing the Galaxy Quest, and I certainly did as well, the Galaxy Quest, because of the costumes.
I don't think it's an unfair comparison, but I'm not sure that that's what was foremost in their mind. It probably had some influence, but I think the main thing is it almost feels like they're more parodying TNG than original series as well,
Yes.
because it's got that kind of TNG vibe to it.
It
But then
does.
isn't McFarlane a TNG fan?
He is. He's
Primarily, yeah.
He's just a big Star Trek fan
Yeah.
in general.
How long do you think it's going to be that they get the ratings boost of getting Patrick Stewart on?
Oh, I don't know, but
Why was Patrick Stewart not the Admiral?
Well, maybe
That
he
would
wasn't
make-
available for that long, but
Maybe. He'd do it. He and Seth MacFarlane, he does stuff for Seth MacFarlane all the time.
Yeah.
It's
I
probably
bet he-
availability.
American
yeah.
Dad.
Yeah. How long is it going to be till TNG cast members start guest starring?
Yeah, I would absolutely love it if Patrick Stewart was the voice of the computer. That would be excellent.
Second episode. Second episode.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, Brent
Not very
Spiner will
good.
turn up.
Patrick Stewart as the computer with a bit of sass.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Patrick Stewart as the voice of the robot
anything really. I think he'll
would
turn
have been
up.
cool.
Yeah,
That
But
would have
this-
been cool.
it's a Fox show, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, which means it'll be cancelled within 5 episodes.
Well, that's what Fox.
It might go
generally
to.
do.
It might go to 8.
No, what Fox will do, this seems to be something that they really love to do, is show it out of sequence.
Having said that, Seth MacFarlane's shows keep getting cancelled and then brought back.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times has Family Guy been cancelled now?
Twice, I think.
And
At least.
he even mentions it in dialogue. It's funny.
Mm-hmm. Although, to be fair, animated's a completely different ball game than live action. But even so,
and it's obvious that the Orville, it looks quite high budget in some ways, but like the CGI is meant to be. I think it's deliberately kind of crappy.
Like the bridge, I saw one person saying, "Oh, that looks crap. Look, the bridge looks like it's directly out of the '80s." And I think,
you know what the bridge reminds me of?
That's the point.
Did anyone ever see? And I'd like to stress, I've only ever seen the edited version of this. It's on YouTube. Okay. It's got all the action scenes cut out. Giles Aston, who played Picard in this TNG porno.
Oh.
You remember the Next Generation porno? I'm not suggesting you've watched it, but there's an edited version on YouTube that's had all the porn scenes cut out of it. So someone cut it down as a fan film. And the bridge on that they built for that looks a lot like this bridge.
I wonder if they'll make a joke about not shining a black light in that bridge.
Yeah, but that would be funny.
Oh, I wonder if he'll squeeze the 4 lights.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I like the look of it. And I agree, it does look like something from the 90s, but as you say, I think that's entirely intentional.
Yeah, I think that's the point. And I think the bridge. Someone said, "Oh, the bridge looks like they ran out of budget." I think that's entirely the point.
I have to say, if I was building a fan film bridge for a TNG era film, I would totally use that set.
Yeah, it looked quite
good. It would work for a TNG fan film, fan film. Totally.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
My fear is that it's just
maybe
one
after
joke.
they're cancelled, Seth can send it to me.
Maybe.
I think that's a fair concern. It's funny, all funny in the trailer, but can they kind of keep that up for an entire series? Are all the best jokes in the trailer? I don't know. Yeah. Mind you, Family Guy repeats itself a lot, but it's still a funny show, so
Indeed.
I guess you may well find there's a lot of the same gags repeat themselves.
Conceptually, it feels a bit like Powerless in that sense, as in it's set in a semi-serious world, but it's this comedy involving all these misfits or whatever. But I think Powerless, the actual joke ran out after about 3 or 4 minutes for me. So
I never watched it. So
yeah, I was done with it after that, and then it got canned.
Right.
Funnily enough, but it lasted about 8 episodes.
I don't predict a long life for this, but I hope I'm wrong. It looks like fun.
I wonder if it's going to be a little bit like Johnny English, but in space. You know how when Johnny English, he thinks he knows what he's doing, but actually he's not. He doesn't.
Maybe.
Well, it sets up the premise right away.
And his ex-wife's going to be the competent one.
Yeah, I think.
I must admit, I loved the banana gag. And actually, I think the two are going to play out really well off each other.
Yeah.
Because that scene with the banana, they were actually they played the comedy really well between the two of them.
Yes.
And that's not easy to do, but there was a definite kind of chemistry and spark there, and that was pretty cool. Comedy's not easy.
No.
And they pulled that scene off very nicely. So for me, anyway, that gives me hope.
It's interesting that we're going to have 2 Star Trek shows in effect on later this year.
Yeah. This just makes me want to go and do a sci-fi parody now instead.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Orville, looking forward to it. Circle
Indeed.
back to Discovery to wrap up. I think, despite some of the ropey visual effects and Doug Jones' rubbery face, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's interesting. I want to see modern Star Trek. I'm looking forward to modern Star Trek. I want to see something a bit different. Let's hope it is. That's what it is.
Well, I'm going to hold to the IDIC principle.
Yep.
And just give it its fair chance at the end of the day. I think I will be a bit controversial here, and I'll say that all those people who are saying I'm not going to watch this because it looks crap, they've changed the Klingons, they've changed the aesthetic. You're closed-minded, and you're probably going to cheat yourself out of a good experience.
And a lot of those people will still watch it.
Some of them will. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of people I know that are not going to watch it because of certain lawsuits and everything like that, and or heavy-handedness of CBS, and fair enough, okay, but you're not going to watch it because you don't like the look of the Klingons or you don't like the look of the bridge. Come on.
I will I loved the trailer. I liked what I saw. I will absolutely tune into this. If I don't like it when I watch it, I'll give it a chance for a few episodes and then I might stop. But I suspect I'm going to enjoy it and I'll watch it. And it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. If people don't want to watch it, that's great. I'm not going to argue with them. Go watch something else.
I will watch the entire series and judge it on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because the first couple of episodes can always be very wobbly.
Yeah.
I always think the test of a show is the second
seasons.
episode. Yeah. Well, that's...
Or in TNG's case, the third season.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, actually, that's not fair. Season 2 had some really good episodes, but, you know...
I don't think TNG, as it is, would work today.
God,
the way it was wobbly, its wobbly storytelling and everything like that, and the way it took 2.5 seasons to really find its feet.
And how preachy it is, or was.
But TNG would today's TV environment. TNG wouldn't have lasted past its first couple of episodes. I mean, it was a dreadful first season. There's a couple of watchable episodes in there, but it was awful. Yeah, and like I say, I mean, the first few. There's maybe half a dozen episodes in season 2 that I think are pretty good, but most of season 2 is kind of dry and dull as well. Although, to be fair, I like the way season 2 looks. It feels like they're still out on the frontier. It feels like it's got that kind of frontiery feel about it, whereas later it just feels more kind of like then within safe space later.
Yeah.
I can't
obviously,
I think it's just the way they shot it and everything.
Yeah, modern television being what it is, a TV show doesn't get 2 seasons to find its feet before getting canned. Mm-hmm. If people aren't responding to it within the first 3 or 4 episodes, it's on. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
It's on its last legs.
And that's the fear here. I fear that it might actually turn out to be really good, in my opinion, and I might start enjoying it, only for just enough people to not watch it to get it canned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then if they can it within a couple of episodes, then we're not going to see Star Trek on the small screen for a long time.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. But yeah, it's exciting. We're getting Star Trek.
Well, that would make some people happy, wouldn't it?
It would make some people happy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're getting Star Trek again, and that's something to be excited about. And
it certainly is. As a fan, it's certainly something to be excited about.
Yeah, and I'll be reviewing it every episode, but I dare say we should do a podcast now and again, every couple episodes or something.
Sounds good.
I think we should. And certainly, if it lasts the season, we could certainly maybe do 2 or 3 podcasts over the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's not make them quite so long. I think, considering how long we've discussed the trailer, several episodes worth of discussion could keep us going for about 3 days.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, I think we've barely talked about the trailer. I think we spent more time talking about other things, but
that's true.
That is very
true.
But
that's what happens with That's what happens with Star Trek. You get launched into everything. But yeah.
How does that T-shirt go? Do not mention Star Trek around this person, otherwise you'll start a long, long diatribe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think on that note, we should wrap up.
Yep.
Go back to our real lives, such as they are.
Indeed. I'm going to go make some Elcars panels.
I'm going to go to bed.
I'm going to go and review the season finale of Supernatural.
Groovy.
Yeah, but if you're listening to this,
I've only ever watched I think I've only kind of part way through season 3 on that, but season 13 they're coming to it. They're doing a Scooby-Doo crossover.
Yeah,
they're doing an animated episode where they cross into Scooby-Doo's universe or something.
Supernatural's brilliant in that
I'm totally going to watch
episodes. That. Yeah, it does meta episodes
and it doesn't take itself at all seriously. I actually quite like it. I just don't get a lot of time to watch anything these days.
It takes itself seriously enough of the time, but they do an episode every now and again that's just insane. you get an episode where I forget what seasons it's in, but they end up in the real world, and people think they're the actors playing that play the characters. It's insane, but it works.
Oh, well, we watched one last night, actually, from Season 3, and it was with the ghost faces. It was slightly bizarre. It was really? Please tell me those assholes don't come back again.
Oh, they do. They do.
Oh, great. They're annoying.
It gets more bizarre it gets more bizarre as time goes on. You'll see some really crazy meta episodes later.
Oh, well.
But that's the beauty of it.
Righty-ho.
So on
that note, I'm going to sign off.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you for joining me for this occasional trailer chat.
My pleasure.
Been awesome.
Yeah. And
it's been fun.
Listeners, you can catch us on iTunes, YouTube, or any major podcasting app. So please do join us on the next Kneel Before Pod.